my first foray probably into a more formal structure would have been in an organization, Australia Post, which is obviously our postal system. And effectively, this was back into a large organization, lots of money. And they had a big problem, like all postal systems around the world, which was post and mail was declining and they needed new revenue streams, and therefore efficiency became king. So this is my first foray into doing large-scale Agile in 2008, before the term was coined. And of course, large-scale Agile before the term was coined was chaos. But we ran big, large Agile teams across 350 people. But the best thing I learned there was we had really good purpose. And the purpose was we needed to introduce a new revenue stream. And we were doing digital identity over postage. And effectively, previously, before we had started it, to go into post offices at the time, and I love it, took 3 years to get anything into a post office, any sort of software changes. And I was just, mind spinning. How could it possibly take 3 years to get into post offices? And that was the first project where we worked 300 people and we delivered a digital identity solution. So passports, driver's license, working with children checks, but we went in 9 months. And it was more where there's a will and there's a way. We had a group of people with a very clear priority as to what good was, and everyone, chaos, but worked well together. And it's the first time I'd actually seen it work on such a large scale. And it almost gave me the power of belief. This is possible. And when we talk about Agile, we still had, because it was quite unionized, we still had big requirement specs. We still had 45 people required to sign off documents before we went live, but they still embraced it. And we didn't worry about any of that. Well, we need 45 signatures, cool. We didn't allow it to stop us or to get in the way. We kept our eye on the prize, which was to introduce a new revenue stream into post offices as quickly as possible. And initially up front, we chose 6 months, and we had chose to put passports in. And I suppose the big message we learned there was that's not what we did. We did it in 9 months, but we did it with a working with children check. But the message was we proved it. But we pivoted along the way when we realized, too complicated, not going to do it. But no one remembers that wasn't the original agreement. And actually the pivot was a strong one and it made sense. And everyone embraced the fact that showing efficiency and speed and actually proving you could get into post offices in 9 months when it was previously 3 years was actually the win. So keeping that real flex, and they were great at that real flexibility of, okay, that's not what we said, but actually we'll change it and we'll pivot. But yeah, that was the first time I'd actually seen it work at scale, but chaos at the same time.
Yeah, I love that. I'm just going to pick a few words out there. So chaos, you started off with that. What was it? It was chaos. And most of these things are, and as you said, especially in the early days where there's confusion, there's no structure. But the key driver for that word I want to pick out is purpose. There's a phrase we use, the burning platform. And, Kotter talks about having this sense of urgency, which clearly they had, because if you don't change your product or your direction, then you're gonna go off a cliff. And in this age of digitalization, we saw that happen a lot. And I think that's often what's lacking in many organizations now. When you speak to them, why are you doing an agile transformation? Because everybody is. What we're seeing is a bandwagon effect. Yeah. And when you have that, there's far more disinclination, if you will, to get on board, because people don't see the value. Whereas if you don't do this, you're going to be out of a business in 6, 12, 9 months. So that allows you to then do what you did in such a short time, in 3 years to 9 months. It's huge. That's so rapid, isn't it?
Well, that chaos and that lack of purpose, like I still see today, like chaos is just working with large groups of people, like the communication of helping people realize what we're doing when you're working at 300 to 1,000. Like, it takes a lot of time and a lot of energy to remind people, remember, this is what we're doing. Remember, this is what we're doing. So you get chaos due to size, and probably purpose is the number one thing lacking everywhere. I reckon if you can't describe your purpose in a one line and make it a smart, measurable goal, then like it's too confusing for people. People
Absolutely.
today,
Make
when
it
I come in
memorable.
from a consultant perspective, yeah, make it memorable, and everyone just, it's like a little tagline, but taglines work real well for memories implants, and then it seeps into your head when you have your conversations. And frequently today, large organizations, you know, working on too many things. Oh, we've got 48 top priorities, which no one can remember the list. If you can't remember the list, then you're not doing it. Probably one of my first things. If you tell me what's on the list, but don't look at it, and if you can't tell me what's on the list without looking at it, it's too long. Simple little
exactly.
rules to help
I
people
know.
realize purpose.
And you've got the list, don't you? But then you say, okay, what's a priority? Well, everything's a number one priority. Well, if you've got 48, 50, 110, if they're all number one, then you have nothing. And that's a real indicator for me. It's like backlogs, isn't it? You know, what's your prioritized backlog? We don't have one. We just have a backlog of stuff, and no one knows what to do in what order. That means you've got a clear lack of a strategy. You don't know where you're going. Goes back to you don't have the purpose. And as you said, you can go around most executive boards and tell me the strategy and the values of the organization. Crickets. Red faces of embarrassed looks going, oh, we don't know. Quick Google on their phone to see what it says on the website. But if they don't know, how can you expect, as you say, in an organization of not only 350, but thousands now? I mean, you're talking literally thousands of people across the globe in these big organizations trying to do these transformations. And it's not chaos by numbers, that's chaos by self-creation because of not providing that top-down clarity from the exec.